The evening sky over Caracas, Venezuela, on May 21, 1955, shimmered with the glow of sunset, the kind that paints the clouds gold before darkness, quietly replaces light. Pan Am Flight 9914, a Douglas DC-4 passenger aircraft, was preparing for takeoff, its destination Miami, Florida. On board were 57 passengers and 6 crew members, families, businessmen, honeymooners, all eager for a short, uneventful flight across the Caribbean. Nothing unusual marked that afternoon. Weather reports showed clear skies, and the aircraft had recently passed inspection. It was, by all official accounts, a routine flight. At 6:30 p.m., the engines roared to life. Witnesses on the tarmac described the takeoff as perfectly normal, the DC-4 lifting gracefully into the air, vanishing into the orange horizon. It was scheduled to arrive in Miami around 9:45 p.m., a simple 3-hour journey, but Flight 914 never arrived. Air traffic controllers in Miami waited patiently. There had been no distress signal, no weather disruption, no radar anomaly. The last radio contact had been a calm voice from the captain, confirming altitude and course just 30 minutes after departure. Then, silence. When the aircraft failed to appear on radar, search operations began immediately. The U.S. Coast Guard and Venezuelan authorities dispatched planes to scour the Caribbean Sea. For days, they searched tirelessly. Not a trace was found, no wreckage, no oil slick, not even a floating seat cushion. It was as if the plane had disappeared from the sky itself. Families of the passengers clung to hope. News headlines across Latin America and the United States screamed. Passenger jet missing. Flight 914. Vanishes without a trace. Speculation ran wild. Some believed it had crashed deep in the ocean. Others whispered of hijacking or sabotage. Conspiracy theorists even claimed it had entered some kind of Bermuda Triangle-like vortex. But as weeks turned into months and then years, the mystery of Flight 914 faded into the archives of unsolved aviation disasters. By 1956, the official investigation was closed. Authorities declared that all 63 people on board were presumed dead. The airline paid compensation to families. Memorial services were held and the world moved on. For decades, the incident remained one of aviation's many tragic unsolved mysteries, another flight that took off and never came back. But deep within the archives, something strange was quietly recorded, details never released to the public. Venezuelan control tower logs indicated an unusual radar blip that appeared exactly 37 years later, in 1992, around the same coordinates where Flight 914 had vanished. At first, the controllers dismissed it as a glitch, but within minutes, the radar echo began transmitting something familiar. It was a transponder code, one registered to Pan Am Flight 914, a plane that officially no longer existed. At the Caracas control tower, the system blinked erratically. The old transponder code shouldn't even have been in the system database. But there it was, Flight 914, returning a valid signal, identifying itself as a Pan Am DC-4 en route to Miami. Controllers thought it was an error, perhaps a private plane accidentally using an outdated code. Then, they received a faint radio message, crackling through static. Caracas Control, this is Pan Am Flight 914, scheduled to land in Miami. May 21, 1955. The control tower froze. Technicians confirmed it wasn't a recording or interference. The signal was live, transmitting on an obsolete frequency no longer used since the 1960s. Even the format of the call sign matched mid-century communication styles. Within moments, the mysterious aircraft appeared on radar, flying steadily at the exact altitude and route recorded 37 years earlier. When the Venezuelan Air Force scrambled jets to intercept, they couldn't believe what they saw. A vintage Pan Am Douglas DC-4, pristine and intact, cruising peacefully through the clouds, its paintwork still gleaming white and blue, the Pan American logo visible on the tail. It looked as though it had taken off just hours ago, not decades earlier. Yet there it was, flying in the modern world, a ghost from another time. As the control tower tried to contact the pilot again, the aircraft made a slow, careful turn, aligning itself for landing at Caracas International Airport. The runway was cleared immediately. Emergency teams stood by, unsure of what to expect. The tower logged every second, every transmission, every flicker on the radar. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the signal vanished again. No visual contact. No radar hecho. The sky was empty once more. Controllers were left staring at blank screens, unsure if what they'd seen had ever really happened. But when maintenance crews checked the radar log, the data was real. The timestamps matched, and the transponder ID was verifiably that of Pan, Flight 914, last recorded 37 years earlier. In the days that followed, rumors spread among airport staff. Some claimed they saw a faint silhouette of an old aircraft passing over the runway that night, its lights flickering softly before vanishing into the dark horizon. Others said it touched down briefly, the tires leaving a few strange marks on the tarmac that disappeared by morning. Whatever the truth, official records were sealed almost immediately. No explanation was given. No press release followed. Only one classified report was quietly filed, marked Temporal Displacement Anomaly, Case 914. And from that day forward, the mystery of Flight 914 transformed from a simple aviation incident into one of the most chilling unsolved cases in modern history, and a story that would continue to echo for decades, whispered in hangars and control rooms by those who still believe the impossible, that a plane from 1955 had somehow crossed through time and returned. Nearly 4 decades after the mysterious disappearance of Pan Am Flight 914, the world had moved on. The DC-4's story had become just another legend told in old aviation, forums, and whispered around pilot lounges. But in the early morning hours of May 9, 1992, at Caracas International Airport, something extraordinary happened, something that would reignite the mystery and rewrite the boundaries of what humans understood about time and reality. It was just after 5 a.m., and the air traffic control tower was unusually calm. Only a few domestic flights were scheduled to depart that morning. The Caribbean sky was painted a soft gray, with streaks of early dawn beginning to show on the horizon. Controllers monitored their radar screens, chatting casually over coffee. Then, without warning, a faint signal appeared. At first, it looked like a simple blip, a radar ghost, the kind technicians occasionally saw due to weather interference. But this one didn't fade. It was steady, consistent, and transmitting an identifiable transponder code. The code was one that hadn't been used in over 3 decades. Pan Am 914. The tower supervisor frowned, checking his database. The number wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Yet there it was, broadcasting cleanly on an old aviation frequency that had been retired in the late 1960s. The aircraft's signature data was even more unsettling. Its model, listed as a Douglas DC-4, an aircraft long out of commercial service. Controllers adjusted their equipment, thinking it was a glitch. But the radar confirmed the object was real, flying at 7,000 feet, approaching from the southeast. The same route Pan Am 914 had taken on its final flight. Moments later, the radio crackled to life with faint static. A man's voice, formal, calm, and slightly distorted by time, came through. Caracas Control, this is Pan American Flight 914 en route from New York to Miami. Scheduled arrival 9:45 a.m., May 21st, 1955. The tower fell silent. Every controller froze. Those words didn't make sense, not in 1992. Within seconds, supervisors verified that the transmission was coming from the unknown aircraft on their radar. The signal was real, not recorded. But how could a plane from 1955 still be airborne and transmitting as if nothing had happened? The controllers tried responding, but the signal wavered. Only fragments came through, coordinates, altitude, and the same calm pilot's voice repeating the same line. Unaware that 37 years had passed, military authorities were notified. The Venezuelan Air Force scrambled 2 intercept jets to verify the radar contact visually. As they climbed through the morning haze, their onboard cameras locked onto something extraordinary. There, gliding smoothly through the clouds, was a vintage Pan Am Douglas DC-4, its silver body glinting in the sunlight. The paintwork was clean, the windows intact, and the iconic blue globe logo still bright on its tail, as if it had rolled out of a 1950s hangar that same day. But what truly shocked the pilots wasn't just the aircraft's presence. It was the way it looked untouched by time. No corrosion, no fading, no visible damage. Even the propellers turned with mechanical precision, emitting the deep rhythmic hum of piston engines from another era. When air traffic control attempted to guide the plane for landing, the pilot responded calmly, acknowledging instructions. He didn't seem confused or panicked. It was as though he believed it was still 1955, and that his journey to Miami was perfectly routine. But then, as the plane descended toward the runway, something unexplainable began to happen. Eyewitnesses from the ground later reported that the air around the plane seemed to shimmer, like heat haze, but colder, denser. The sound of the engines fluctuated, growing fainter even as the aircraft drew closer. Controllers watching through binoculars saw the landing lights approach, then blink, then fade, and then, in an instant, vanish completely. No explosion, no smoke, no debris. The radar showed the blip for exactly 7 minutes. Then it disappeared, gone as suddenly as it had come. The jets circling the area found nothing. No visual contact, no heat signature. The skies were clear. It was as though the plane had stepped through a doorway that wasn't supposed to exist. But there was evidence, subtle yet undeniable. At 5:29 a.m., maintenance crews discovered fresh tire marks on one of the remote runways, faint but real, as if a large, heavy aircraft had touched down briefly before vanishing again. The markings matched the landing gear width of a Douglas DC-4. Security footage from the nearest hangar captured a flash of light, followed by what looked like a faint silhouette of a four-engine aircraft passing through the mist, before fading to nothing. The event was immediately classified. Military personnel sealed off the area, confiscated the recordings, and silenced the tower staff under orders of national security. Officially, no incident had occurred that morning, but some details leaked. Within days, rumors began spreading across South America. Local newspapers mentioned an unidentified aircraft detected over Caracas. Some even claimed it landed briefly before vanishing. Witnesses near the airport swore they heard the deep rumble of propeller engines that morning, a sound no modern jet produced. Meanwhile, an anonymous photo surfaced, a blurry black and white image showing a vintage Pan, and plane taxiing on a runway under gray skies. Experts called it fake, but those who saw it said otherwise. The serial number barely visible under the tail matched N3794, the same number assigned to Flight 914 in 1955. For the families of the passengers, the story reopened old wounds. Many were gone by 1992, but their descendants reached out to authorities, desperate for answers. Could it be that their loved ones had somehow returned? Was the aircraft trapped in some kind of time loop? A fragment of the past replaying itself in the present? Scientists and aviation historians offered theories. Some said it was a rip in atmospheric layers, a phenomenon where electromagnetic conditions could distort space-time. Others proposed that the aircraft had entered a temporal vortex, similar to lightning-induced plasma events that could, theoretically, distort time perception. But none of those theories could explain one final chilling detail. When investigators quietly re-examined archived data from the 1955 disappearance, they found something they had missed: the last recorded message from Flight 914's black box before it vanished. It was a simple sentence, nearly lost in static. "Everything is normal. We can see the lights of Miami ahead." That message was time-stamped 9:12 p.m., May 21, 1955, and the radar echo that reappeared in 1992, it showed the exact same time. As if, for that plane and everyone aboard, time had never moved forward. When the mysterious reappearance of Flight 914 hit the news, the world was divided in disbelief on one side and fear on the other. Some called it a hoax. Others believed it was a cover-up by higher authorities. But those who had seen the radar recordings knew it was real. Within hours, international investigators from the FAA, CIA, and Venezuelan Air Force assembled in Caracas. The entire airspace footage of that day was confiscated. Civilian access was denied. All communication frequencies were sealed. A heavy rainstorm lashed across the air base as black vans rolled in, headlights slicing through the fog. Officers stepped out, their faces unreadable. Inside one van was a steel briefcase labeled Echo 9. Inside that case were the last known radar prints of Flight 914. The footage showed something unexplainable, a clear signal of a DC-4, aircraft moving steadily, its transponder code perfectly matching Pan Am's missing plane from 1955. But here's the impossible part. The flight path showed no origin point. It simply appeared in the sky, from nowhere. Experts tried to explain it through radar interference, magnetic storms, even weather reflections. But none of those theories could justify a verified transponder signal broadcasting a 37-year-old aircraft code still registered as missing. When investigators tried to match the plane's frequency with modern aviation systems, something strange happened. The radar system froze for a full 17 seconds. Then, the signal vanished completely. That was the last time Flight 914 was ever recorded. Rumors began spreading through the military base. Some claimed the radar operators heard faint, radio static, a woman's voice repeating, "Pan Am 914, requesting permission to land." Others swore they saw the ghostly outline of a plane shimmering through the mist before it faded away. Whatever it was, real or illusion, the fear inside the hangar was real. The Venezuelan Air Force shut down the airfield for 2 days. When it reopened, every trace of the incident was gone. No public record, no photos, no official mention. But still, stories leaked through whispers and late-night reports. A few weeks later, a journalist named Maria Torres from El Nacional newspaper received a plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a single black-and-white photo showing a Pan Am DC-4 taxiing on a runway. The timestamp in the corner, May 21st, 1992. The photo was grainy, yet authentic. Experts confirmed it couldn't have been edited, not with the technology of that time. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible in fog, stood a man in a 1950s pilot uniform, looking confused, clutching a flight manifest. Who took the photo remains unknown. Who delivered it, even more of a mystery. As weeks turned into months, the world moved on. The files were sealed under classified status, marked Project E914. Only a handful of government officials had access. Most of them either retired mysteriously or disappeared from public records. But a decade later, in 2003, one of those officials broke silence. He leaked a statement under anonymity saying, "That plane didn't time travel. It slipped through something else. Something we still don't understand." He mentioned strange electromagnetic readings, a shift in radio frequencies, and a dimensional echo around the coordinates where Flight 914 was last seen. Was it a wormhole? A rift in time? Or a classified test gone wrong? No one could say for sure. But the one thing everyone agreed on, Flight 914 existed in 2 different timelines. To this day, the incident remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. No crash, no wreckage, no distress call. Just a plane that took off in 1955 and appeared again 37 years later, unchanged, untouched, and unexplainable. Some believe it's hidden in a secret military hangar somewhere in South America. Others say it's trapped between dimensions, endlessly flying through time. Whatever the truth may be, the story of Flight 914 continues to haunt the skies. A chilling reminder that sometimes the sky doesn't give everything back. The hangar was silent now. The Pan Am DC-4 sat under dim golden floodlights, its surface wet from the rain that had just ended. The air smelled of fuel and dust, a mix of the past and the present colliding. It had been days since the mysterious reappearance of Flight 914, yet not a single piece of the puzzle truly fit together. Every official report contradicted itself. Every voice recording sounded too perfect to be real, and every instrument reading suggested something impossible. The investigation had gone deeper than anyone imagined. What began as a simple air traffic anomaly had turned into a full-scale classified operation under the code name Echo 9. Teams from aviation, physics, and even the defense sector were now involved. They all stood around the ghostly plane, unsure whether it belonged to their time at all. When the engineers first powered the systems inside the DC-4, the gauges spun as if trying to catch up to a time long gone. The onboard clock was frozen at May 21, 1955, the exact day the plane had vanished. Even more unsettling, the flight log inside the cockpit was freshly inked, as though written only hours earlier. The crew names matched the original manifest from 1955, yet there were no human remains, no decay, no damage. The seats looked recently used. The air inside the cabin carried the faint scent of coffee and perfume. like the passengers had just left moments ago. One of the investigators noticed something strange about the exterior of the plane. The metal surface had a thin, glassy layer, microscopic and reflective, like it had passed through extreme heat or energy. When samples were tested, they contained non-terrestrial isotopes, the kind of anomalies never found in Earth's atmosphere. That discovery never made it to the official report. Meanwhile, radar technicians studied the black box recordings. The voices of the pilots were calm, describing clear skies and routine procedures before the transmission abruptly ended. But the last 5 seconds contained a faint background sound, a deep, rhythmic hum layered with static. When slowed down, it formed a repeating pattern, almost mathematical, like a signal. Experts couldn't agree on what it was, but one analyst quietly noted that its structure resembled the resonance of pulsars, stars, thousands of light years away. As days passed, the secrecy around Flight 914 intensified. The aircraft was transported under heavy guard to an underground facility near Nevada. Only a handful of people were authorized to access it. The name Flight 914 was erased from public databases. Witnesses were silenced, radar logs were replaced, and the press was told it was an instrumental glitch. But a few journalists still had copies of the data. One of them, an aviation historian named Elena Cross, had followed the case for decades. Her research connected patterns from other unexplained disappearances. Ships, planes, even satellites, all showing similar energy traces. In her notes, she found something chilling. The coordinates where Flight 914 vanished matched the position of a transient electromagnetic anomaly that appeared every few decades. Some scientists believed it was a form of natural temporal distortion, a tear in space-time, a window, as she called it. If her theory was correct, Flight 914 didn't crash. It crossed over. Inside the secret facility, security footage recorded one final inexplicable event. 3 weeks after its reappearance, while technicians performed low-voltage system checks, the DC-4's engines suddenly came to life, and on their own, the propellers turned slowly, one by one, glowing faintly blue. The cockpit lights flickered. Then, just as quickly, the hangar lights went out. When emergency power returned, the plane was gone. No explosion, no noise, just an empty hangar floor. The faint outline of landing. Gear burned into the concrete. The Echo 9 project was quietly terminated. Every official record related to Flight 914 was classified under unresolved temporal phenomena. The lead investigator disappeared, months later without explanation. His family claimed he had become obsessed with the idea that the plane hadn't vanished, but had simply returned home. Years later, a retired air traffic controller from Caracas shared a story in a taped interview. He recalled that on the morning of May 21, 1992, minutes before Flight 914 appeared on radar, he received a radio message from an unknown frequency. The voice was old, calm, and polite. It gave identification as Captain Ramirez of Pan Am 914. When he tried to respond, the transmission faded, replaced by that same low-pulsing hum. The timestamp on that recording, still preserved, was exactly 37 years to the minute after the original disappearance. Today, there is no trace of the aircraft. No confirmed wreckage, no passenger lists available to the public. But some pilots claim that on rare, clear nights over the Caribbean, radar screens still show a faint blip, moving slow and steady with the same call sign. Panam 914. And if you tune your radio to a forgotten frequency, sometimes you might hear that distant hum again, a whisper from another time. A flight that never crashed, only lost its way through the years. The story of Flight 914 remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries, a reminder that the sky above us still hides, places untouched by logic, and somewhere, perhaps between time itself, a plane continues its endless flight across decades, across silence and through the unbroken blue of forever.